In this video, I'm going to give you an introduction to general solutions. And so if you have come from grade 10 and I said to you, please can you solve for theta, you would probably just know when I need an angle, I shift. And so you'd go shift cos a half, and then that would just give you your answer, and you'd throw a party and celebrate. And that worked for you because you were always dealing with angles less than 90. Now suddenly, come grade 11, when you're asked to solve something like this question here, sine in brackets 2x minus 40 close brackets equals minus root 3 over 2, you know that you always need to do general solution in order to solve. And so there's two critical steps to doing general solution. The first is you always want to tick which two quadrants this applies to. And so you are thinking here of your cast diagram. And secondly, you're trying to get a reference angle. And so the first type, there are three main types of ways that you can do general solution. The first is where you just have a function like sine, cos, or tan equaling a number. And so here we've got the function sine equaling a number. Step one, we say sine is negative. So which two quadrants is sine negative? It's the bottom two. So quadrant 3 and 4. Second step, we get a reference angle. And how you can get that is either you can just shift sine without the negative and it will spit out 60, or you can shift sine with the negative, and if you do that you must always just immediately add 180 and that will pop you back to this reference angle. Many schools do many different things for general solution, and so you might be looking at these videos saying, but I do it a different way. And if it works for you, go with it. If you find this easier, then go with this. And so why I like this method is because whatever the angle is, I'll just always start with that. And then if I've said I'm in the third and the fourth quadrant, then how do I get into the third quadrant? What's the address of getting there? It's always 180 plus the reference angle plus K360. I'll explain that in a sec. And how do I get in the fourth quadrant? It's 360 minus theta minus the reference angle plus K360. And from that step onwards, you've broken the back of the beast, and now it's just simple algebra of taking numbers to one side, eventually getting to this point, and then I divide by 2 so I can get x by itself. And that becomes my one general solution. And I'm doing the same steps on this side, simplifying all my numbers to one side, dividing by 2 to get x by itself. There's my other general solution. Then the one thing to say is when you do general solution for 1 mark, you always just want to say k is an element of the integer. That just means I can sub in any integer value to get my answers that I want. You could also, some schools use n here, and then you'd say NEZ. It doesn't really matter. And what the 360 represents is just a general period of a sine graph. And so you can imagine if this question was cos, we'd have K360, but if this question was a tan question, the period is 180. So we'd start with K 180. And how that helps you is, if this is my general solution, so generally what my answers are going to be, then a typical follow-on question will ask you to solve for x or solve for a specific solution, and they'll give you something like this here. Solve for x if it's an element of minus 100 until 270. I just try to give you a bit of a weird domain to show you how this works. And then what I do is I just say, looking at that number 140 that I got in my general solution, does that fit somewhere between here? And if it does, then it's an answer. And then k as an element of the integer means you can keep subbing in 1, 2, 3, 4, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, 0. You can sub in all those kind of numbers into k, and you'll get a number that you can add to 140. I personally find it much easier to just say, did 140 land somewhere between here? Yes. And then I simply just add that number with k. I add 180 to this, and that gives you 320, but that's a little too big. And then I go back to my number 40, and I minus 180 from here, and I see that gives me minus 40, and that is in between that domain, and so I'll accept that answer. Then I come to the other one, 170. Does that make it in between there? Yes, it does. And then I will add whatever numbers with k. So it's 350. That's a bit too big for what they want. And if I minus 180 from here, I would end up with minus 10, which is perfect. If I minus another 180 from here, I'm on minus 190. That's a bit too small for the domain they want. And so that's how you do general solution. You always boil it back to these two steps. This is how I just lay it out every time, whatever quadrant I'm in. If I'm in the second quadrant, I would have at this stage here said 180 minus. And then turning a general solution to specific solutions, I just say, is the answer that I get here legit? Is it in between this domain? And if it is, great. And I just keep adding and minusing the number with k as much as I need until I get answers that don't fit in this domain. And that's how you get the solve for x or specific solutions. I hope that you found that helpful as an introduction to general solutions and a look at option A, the most common one. In the next few videos, I'll look at the other two options that you have for general solution. I hope that you found that useful. If you did, please like it, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends. Thanks.